So there are two very strange countries that I'm investing in, and one of these countries you might not have even heard of before. The country is the Republic of Georgia. Not the state in America, but the country situated between Russia and Turkey. My friends and my family all had to look up atlases to see where Georgia was when I first told them about this 3 or 4 years ago, but it's a cool little country just there. Now, Georgia's a small country. It has 3.7 million people, but it is extremely beautiful with beautiful mountains, a really strange, eclectic capital city in Tbilisi. It's just a really cool country to invest in. Tourism is growing crazy fast at the moment as well. So I'm really interested in businesses and especially the tourism industry here in Georgia. Now, I have a small business here in Georgia. I'm importing cars into the country, and I also have an apartment here that I've bought, and I'm looking to do a lot more interesting and cool things here in the country. I think one of the cooler things that's happened here in Georgia in the past, say, 20 years is that the president from about the early 2000s, his name was President Saakashvili. Now, he was able to really stamp out corruption in the country. So that was a pretty big achievement considering all of the neighboring countries around here are very corrupt. The first thing he did was he just fired everybody in the government and the police, like literally everybody. It was insane. Now, he then went on a hiring spree, hiring new policemen, new people to work in the government, that he hired them based on their stance on corruption, and that he was confident that these people would report corruption in the future as well. He built police stations all across the country that are all made of glass, and the idea of that, it's a symbol of like transparency within the police force, so that people can hopefully have some trust in their police and trust in their government as well. Within just one term of his presidency, he had massively reduced corruption rates throughout the country in the police force and within the government. And Georgian people are really proud of their country being not a corrupt country anymore. Their neighboring countries in Azerbaijan, Armenia, Russia still have quite high levels of corruption, but Georgia is a little bit of a shining light in the region. In the 90s, it was actually quite a dangerous place here. There was a lot of crime, a lot of corruption. Georgia was going through quite a difficult transition period post the collapse of the USSR, but now local people and foreigners can actually leave just like valuables in the car. They're unlocked, and the country is now experiencing one of the lowest petty crime and crime rates throughout the entire world. So here are some of the costs that you would incur living here in Tbilisi. Rent in a nice area, maybe just outside the tourist center, is going to cost around about $500 per month for a nice new apartment, but you can definitely find places outside of the city center in the suburbs for $300 a month for really good quality accommodation. Utilities, internet, phone, gas, water, things like that, around about $50 per month. If you were to do a grocery shop, say once per week, it would cost you around about $40 for that grocery shop. And there are some great cheap eats around the city as well. So I can get like a shawarma full of chicken for around about $2, and it's a really filling meal. Getting around the city is awfully cheap as well. A taxi on a taxi app is going to cost you around about $2 to get just about anywhere in the city. You can take what's called a marshrutka. Now, I haven't been brave enough to take a marshrutka yet, but a marshrutka can cost you around about 10 cents per trip to get you from one side of the city to the other. So around peak hours is a bit of a nightmare, but I guess what capital cities of the world aren't a nightmare in peak hour. A good gym membership is going to cost you around about $40 per month. But the coolest thing is eating out at nice restaurants. Now, I can go to a really nice restaurant, say Rooms Hotel in the center of the city with maybe eight or nine friends, and it's going to cost us probably $20 a head, and that's an entree, that's a main meal, that's a bottle of wine, maybe 2 or 3 bottles of wine. Still going to only cost us around about $20, $25 per person. Not even think about the prices on the menu and just eat and have a great time, and it's not going to blow the budget. And at this nice restaurant, the quality of the food and the wine, if compared to say a Western country restaurant, would normally cost $150, $200 per person, but for $20, $25 per person, you can really live like a king. When I first arrived in Tbilisi, say 3 years ago, it was quite difficult to find good quality restaurants and food that I was happy with. But since tourism has like really increased over the last few years, good restaurants have come along with that. Now I'm up to say 10 or 15 good quality restaurants that I can take friends to, and I'm really happy with the quality of food there. The restaurant scene has really improved in the past couple of years, and I think it's only going to get better. Now, the big reason why I actually came to Georgia in the first place 3 years ago, and I want to give a shout out to Andrew Henderson at Nomad Capitalist. They helped me restructure my business, my online business that I had, and they helped me with my tax strategy for my business and myself personally, and coming to Georgia was just such a good idea. So I really want to thank Andrew Henderson, Nomad Capitalist. You guys did a great job in getting me here, and I've fallen in love with the country. So right now, let's take a moment to click that like button just to help the YouTube algorithm. Your likes motivate me to make more videos. So yep, please. It's real. As you can see, I'm a Georgian resident. Pretty cool that I got this card. Makes me Georgian. Now, the second country that I've just started investing in, and I'm a resident in as well, is Ukraine. Not the Ukraine, just Ukraine. The business I've started here is actually just in the very, very early stages, but I'm really looking to grow that into something really big, which I'll talk about in another video. Now, Ukraine unfortunately has been struggling along for decades and decades now, especially after becoming separate from the USSR. But with a big population and a hungry young workforce, I really see big things coming out of Ukraine in the future. With 44 million people, Ukraine actually ranks 7th in Europe in terms of population, but it is one of the poorer countries in Europe, with the average monthly salary only $250 per month. Even though it's 7th in population, it's actually 23rd in GDP. But because there's such a large population, there is a lot of potential here. So here are some of the basic costs of living in Kiev. It's a little bit more expensive than Tbilisi, but still very affordable. The average rent in the city center is around about $700 per month. A really nice place is going to be like a little over $1,000. And in the suburbs, you can get something pretty decent for about $400 a month. Utilities around about $100 a month. The weekly grocery shop's probably going to be around $60. Now, a cheap meal like a shawarma or like an Asian noodle bowl, it's going to be around about $4. They have Uber here in Kiev, so it's still quite cheap to get around. Like Tbilisi, around about $3 to $10. Kiev's actually quite a big city, a lot bigger than Tbilisi. Gym membership at a pretty good gym, around about $40 as well. So just like Tbilisi, a nice restaurant is going to cost you around about $20, $25 per person for entree, main, and a bottle of wine. I love the fact that I can order what I want, drink what I want. Now, unfortunately, I've got to talk about corruption in Ukraine because it is extremely prevalent, and it's going to be the biggest barrier to investment for myself personally and for anybody else out there looking to invest in the country. So I'll tell you a story about a guy that I met just recently at a party, and he was telling me that he does business with Ukrainians entering Poland. So he actually sells them SIM cards and things they need to enter Poland in Ukrainian language. Now, he said that the levels of corruption in Ukraine are really high, and he warned me not to go into business in Ukraine. He said that if people find out who you are and you start to become quite successful, you're not quite sure what might happen, and maybe there's something dangerous. There's a dangerous element there to starting a business and being successful in Ukraine. If you don't know people in politics or in banks or people of power in the country, you might have some trouble. So he was really warning me, don't do business in Ukraine, don't do it. Like, please, whatever you do, like, look after yourself and don't go into Ukraine. So what have I done? I've still started a business there. Oh, and I'll tell you another story about some of the problems that you can face in Ukraine. So I've heard this story, don't know how true it is, but I've heard this story of people buying apartments in the country. Sometime 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year after they've made the purchase and been living in the apartment, they might have already done the renovation, put their furniture in. They get a knock on the door and someone shows up that says, look, this is my apartment you've bought isn't real and the paperwork was wrong, but I actually own the apartment and here are the police and they're going to take you away. They're going to kick you out of my apartment. The person spent the $40,000 on the apartment, the $20,000 on the renovation, the $10,000 on furniture, and was told to leave. Now, I'm just telling you some stories that I've heard. I don't personally believe that this is going to happen, and I think that I can mitigate some of my risk by having lawyers and good people who I can trust on my side, but these are the stories that I'm hearing about investing in Ukraine. Oh, and by the way, I'm an Australian citizen, but I'm definitely not a resident. So Australian government, if you're watching this, I am not a resident of Australia for tax purposes, okay? Okay. So you might be wondering, these countries don't speak English. How am I surviving, let alone investing in these countries? Fortunately, a lot of the young people, say under 35, have been studying English since primary school. So their English level is quite good. So this is a theme throughout Eastern Europe, in Poland, in Serbia, Ukraine, Belarus, Georgia, the young population, their English levels are quite good. Now, I think many of these Eastern European countries, Ukraine and Georgia in particular, the people themselves, they really want to align themselves with the Western world. And this means that there's literally thousands of opportunities to improve the lives of the people in these countries and bring things from the Western world into these countries. They want this. And before you go, please subscribe to my channel so you can watch the next video. I hope you've been motivated to think about investing more in Eastern Europe, and I'll see you in the next video.